HOA Karen kept plugging Tesla into my solar grid, so I set the voltage to maximum and watched. Part 4. My porch fan spun peacefully in the breeze, while the rest of the block fumbled for flashlights. Within minutes, half the crowd was pointing toward my house and whispering. I stayed seated with my soda, trying to enjoy the quiet drama unfolding around me. That's when Karen, red-faced and boiling with frustration, stood up in the middle of the group and declared, "See. This is what happens when someone hoards power. We're all left in the dark while he lives like a king." The irony of her statement was so heavy it practically bent gravity. People around her started rolling their eyes. One woman muttered, "He built that system himself." Another man said, "At least someone has power. Maybe the HOA should invest in solar instead of painting curbs." I didn't say a word. I just got up, walked home, and flipped on my external monitor that displayed live footage from my system's control center. The outage had tripped a fault line in the main grid, a city-level issue. It had nothing to do with me, but the resentment in Karen's voice wasn't about logic. It was pure envy. She couldn't stand that I had something she didn't, something she couldn't control. The next morning, the final straw landed. I caught her again, on camera, sneaking into my backyard. Only this time she didn't come for the port. She came with a pair of gardening shears and tried to cut the data line running from one of my solar panels to the inverter unit. She must have thought it was a power line. The second she snipped it, the motion sensor triggered an air horn I'd mounted to the panel rig. A piercing scream tore through the morning air, followed by the sound of Karen falling backward and landing in a pile of mulch. I walked outside casually, phone in hand, recording as I approached. Karen was still on the ground, dirt on her elbows, looking more furious than injured. "I was trimming your weeds," she blurted. "You have invasive growth along the fence." I looked at the clearly labeled cable she had tried to sever and said, "That's my sensor line. Touch it again, and you won't just be facing a noise complaint." And she stood up, brushed herself off, and stormed, and something about legal gray areas and overreactions. That footage was the final piece I needed. I compiled everything, every violation, every visit, every incident. My lawyer filed a formal restraining order the same day. But I didn't stop there. I wrote up a community proposal and presented it at the next HOA Open Forum. The title: Solar Education and Energy Boundaries Policy. In it, I laid out guidelines for understanding private energy systems, penalties for tampering, and suggestions for neighborhood solar investment opportunities. It was framed as a positive, forward-thinking piece of policy. But everyone knew what it really was. A perfectly disguised middle finger wrapped in bureaucratic gold. To no one's surprise, the proposal passed with overwhelming support. Even Diane, who had been Karen's only remaining ally, voted in favor. Karen wasn't present at the meeting. She'd stopped showing up altogether, hiding in her house like a wounded cat. Her Tesla sat unmoved on the curb, still bearing the battle scars from her midnight charging adventure. Someone had placed a solar-powered Garn-Noom on its hood. No one knew who did it, but it wore sunglasses and held a sign that read, "Respect the current." At night, I could see my system glowing quietly, its power humming in perfect order. The chaos had finally started to settle. Karen had run out of moves, and the neighborhood had chosen reason over drama. But I wasn't just satisfied with the win. I wanted to ensure no one ever tried anything like this again. So I started building a small display box, mounted on the front post of my